Get ready.
Hi, and welcome back to Hypno 247 Live. I'm Kaz Riley, and trancing in the sheets with me today, I have Traci Kanaan. And Traci is a really, really wonderful, interesting lady who works as a kink-friendly hypnotherapist, has got lots of other credentials. She's a Sexual Freedom Hypnosis Practitioner. She's won lots of awards, also known as the dominatrix of ditties, and probably is one of the only kink-friendly hypnotherapists in the southwest of Florida. So welcome, Traci, and thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Kaz. So glad to be here.
You're very welcome. So just a quick message from our sponsors today. So just to let you know that once you've actually signed up to the Hypnosis 247 Live Network, you actually instantly receive $200 hotel gift card, which is pretty cool. So make sure you activate that. And if you've not received or not seen it, just check in your spam folder. And you can use this. You can learn a lot more about the incentives that this can do for you or your business. Just by putting in the comments, I think there is a word you have to put in there, which is either stop if you don't want those messages anymore, or solution. So we all like solutions, don't we? So I'd put solution in there and see what happens.
Absolutely.
So Traci, it's really wonderful for you to come and speak to us today. So tell us, how did you get into being a kink-friendly hypnotherapist?
Well, I got into it just the way everybody else gets into it, through a stunning career in stand-up comedy. I was actually hired about 10 and a half years ago to perform at a clothing optional resort as a regular, normal comedian. And then I guess I drank a little bit too much nudist Kool-Aid. And my husband and I, now ex-husband, became nudists. And then as a comedian, I started getting invited to different parties to perform. And then they became house parties, and then they became swinger parties, and then they became swinger hotel takeover parties, and then it became swinger cruises. And then within a couple years, I was getting emails like, hey, it's International Swingers Day. How about if we fly you to the Dominican Republic and you do a show? And I'm like, okay. This was before they killed people at the Dominican Republic, just saying, 10 years ago. Anyway, so anyhow, that's how it all started. As I was going to these swinger events, I saw people were having orgasm after orgasm, and I was not quite there. And so a girlfriend of mine suggested I get hypnotized by one of her friends who helped me with that, and that kicked off the whole entry into the hypnosis world. And then I just started learning and learning. I came into it through the dark underbelly of erotic hypnosis, but then ended up adding hypnotherapy to that, and then coming back full circle to actually helping swingers and kinksters and nudists with various, anywhere from self-esteem to kink and fetish issues.
Fantastic.
So, kind of an odd sort of
it's unique. I think everybody's journey into hypnosis is a unique one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's and also, I guess, by coming in from that kind of angle, you have a really great understanding of the kink community as well. And I think, you know, when we talk about, I am a kink-friendly hypnotherapist here in the UK, and one of the things certainly that my clients say to me is that often with therapy, that the therapist doesn't understand their lifestyle and doesn't understand where they come from and doesn't understand consent and all that kind of stuff. Is that something that you find that occurs over there as well? Do people feel misunderstood by regular therapists?
there's a difference between hearing that someone is having a problem with their sex life or their kink or their fetish, and then there's actually coming from the perspective that, hey, I had that problem too, and here's what we did to get past that. Yeah. So it's just a different level of understanding. It's a different level of experience that you bring to the practice rather than just your standard hypnotherapy training, you know, the pacing and leading and the mirroring and the matching. It's like, no, we actually bring some real life experience to their issues, so we have a better understanding of what they're going through.
Absolutely. I know, like me, you're registered with the National Coalition of Sexual Freedom as a kink-friendly professional, which basically means, isn't it, there's a whole host of people that are registered right the way through, from like plumbers, lawyers, doctors, dentists, hypnotherapists, that really are, you know, mean that people can go and just be themselves. So they're not going to get judged. So even if, you know, I often get people coming for therapy that, you know, as a kink-friendly therapist, but actually their issue isn't anything to do with their lifestyle or kink. It may just be their anxiety. They just want to be able to be openly themselves, which is a great thing, isn't it? You know, that there is that list there now for people. What do you find to be, when you tell people that you're a kink-friendly therapist, what's the kind of thing that you find is the most misunderstood thing about what you do?
Well, there's two things. There's the one that people can't believe that there's someone who actually understands them out there. I get a lot of referrals from other therapists who don't want to touch these subjects for whatever reason. And I think that's the one thing that I find the most, is that there's some kind of commonality there, and the level of comfort that they have telling me their problems, because a lot of my clients find me on fetlife.com, FETLIFE.com. So if I'm on there, chances are that I really understand them, and it's not just a profile. And just that level of comfort of knowing that we come from a similar cloth, even though it's not the exact thing. Sometimes it's just knowing that we're part of that community that brings us all together. The other thing I find is that sometimes people have childhood issues just like everybody else, but they were able to cope with it through kink. So I had 1 week here, it was like all I had were men who wanted to feel more comfortable wearing panties. But every time I dug back down to it, there was a bullying issue, there was abuse from the father, and the way that they coped with it was by being closer to their mom, and the only way they could feel closer to mom was to wear her panties and bras.
Absolutely.
And here they've just continued 50, sometimes 60 years later, doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just a different take on it.
It is. There was some interesting research actually I read a good while ago actually that showed that the assumption was that people who were within the kink community, the assumption was that they would have a much higher rate of childhood abuse and trauma. And actually, the research shows that that isn't the case at all, isn't it? You know, there's actually no difference. And I think the same study looked at thinking that people that were into things like BDSM would have a much lower self-esteem than normal. And actually, the opposite was proven true. Yeah. So I think it's great that we can now start having these conversations so that we can start to bust some of these myths that, you know, everybody that's within the kink community is somehow broken or damaged in some way. And actually, I think there's a lot more self-acceptance and self-expression in the kink community. Is that what you're finding as well?
Absolutely. And, you know, I kind of compare it to the gay lifestyle, where when you talk to gays, it's like, no, this isn't a choice. I'm wired this way. And kinky and fetish people often tell me the same thing, that they're just wired this way. They started having these thoughts. They don't know where they came from when they were 10, 12 years old. And they're usually just delighted that they found other people that they can share this interest with.
No, absolutely. And I think as well, probably the kink community, the fetish community are probably where the gay community were in terms of acceptance, 40 years ago. When you think, now they've decriminalized a lot of the paraphilias, for example, it's not that long that actually being gay was seen as being a mental disorder. Thankfully, that's not the case now. And actually, it's not the case for the kink community anymore, but that's a much more recent transition, isn't it? So, yeah. So what do you find, what's the most rewarding thing for you about being a kink-friendly, openly a kink-friendly hypnotherapist? What do you love about it?
Oh, golly. Overall, I find that the people that are in the kink and fetish are typically much brighter than the average bear. They come from a lot of education. When I do the word list of how they feel now versus how they want to feel, I get adjectives like you wouldn't believe. And sometimes I have to go up to 2 pages of adjectives because they have a great vocabulary. They're very verbose. There's a lot of feelings that they want to get out. They're much more in touch with their feelings, but they, for whatever reason, they can't identify the loop that has them stuck, or and helping them uncover that loop, I think, is the most exciting. So dealing with really bright people that are stuck in a loop, uncovering the loop, and then moving them to the next step of the next best version of themselves, but still keeping their kink intact, I think is awesome.
It's often, often there's a lot of guilt and shame, isn't there, around people about who they are and some of the things that they maybe like or desire or think about. And certainly I find that actually some of them, when they come in, they just need to be told that, actually that it's okay. As long as everything is safe and consenting, then, it's actually perfectly okay to be who they are. And I think that's probably what we do with any client, isn't it? Is about self-acceptance. I know I talk about having permission to be your authentic self, but I think that's particularly true within the kink and fetish community.
Yes.
And it's so rewarding, isn't it? When we see people do that. So tell me about your, kind of your practice. Where's your practice kind of leading with all of this now? Because there aren't many of us, and I know you're highly in demand.
There's probably 80 to 90% of my business comes from the fetish, kink, and swinging communities right now. I've also added on like a lifestyle consulting part to my business, where couples who want to investigate swinging safely, help them find their path through the lifestyle. And I'm very careful to distinguish that I'm not a marriage counselor. You got to be happily married coming in to see me.
Yeah.
But these are the steps you can do to enhance your marriage, your relationship with swinging.
Because it's quite, there's a lot of assumptions made about things like swinging and stuff. And,
yes.
That's something actually, I don't really work an awful lot with. So I think it's, I guess there's issues within that of how to navigate through that kind of lifestyle, isn't it? That are very different than, from couples that, don't swing, I guess. So
yeah, one of the funniest things I come across in the swinging community is that, well, first of all, in the regular world, the issues I see are erectile dysfunction and premature ejaculation. I see that a lot. In the swinging community, I'm having performance issues when I'm in a room full of people having sex. All right, you don't hear that a lot.
No.
You don't hear that a lot. Or I'm having problems performing when I'm with a new partner. And you don't hear that a lot from the community. So it's having that open mind to not judge them for wanting to be in a room full of people having sex, not judging them for having new partners, and understanding where they're coming from. They're just trying to get the most out of their life, essentially.
Absolutely. And actually doing it in a very open and honest way. And I think, this is something that, I've certainly, taken away from working a long time now with sexual issues or sexual function, is that, the kink community and the swinging community are very open about what they do. vanilla community are often, it's all very secretive, and that's much more about lies and deceit. Now, I'm not saying that's what happens in every marriage by any stretch, but you know, it's interesting that the people that are often judged are the ones that are being quite open and honest about how they conduct their lives, which is a fascinating concept, isn't it? You know.
And then in the vanilla world, a lot of times I'll get a guy who's having ED issues, and he's cheating on his partner and wondering why he's having ED issues. I'm like, I don't know, maybe guilt has something to do with that. You know, I'll take your money, we can work on it, but until you
it's obvious. It's obvious to us sometimes, it's not obvious to them, isn't it? You know, they see the symptom, isn't it? You know, and that's often as well, you know, where you get somebody who perhaps is in denial about some of their sexual preferences and kind of squashes them all down, isn't it? You know, and again, it's just that, it's that permission for pleasure, isn't it? You know, that is often so lacking across the board, whatever kind of, however you identify kind of community wise, we people often just don't feel, especially women, I find, don't give themselves permission to really let go and enjoy that. But there's so many reasons why that's the case, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, in swinging, I find a lot of women, they're like, please hypnotize me to like this particular act, whatever it is. And I'm like, why? Well, it would just make my life so much easier if I could just like it. I go, what if I told you it's okay, you don't like it?
Yeah.
And then I give them the tools to empower themselves in the situation so that they can get what they like without hurting the other person involved. I think that's very important.
Communication, isn't it? You know? Yeah.
And then they're just like, oh, wow, this is exactly what I needed. And now they go on with their lives, and it's great.
I know. So in terms, if you wanted to kind of explain to people who have maybe other therapists or even the public what kink-friendly hypnosis or hypnotherapy is, what would you like them to kind of understand about the work that we do as kink-friendly hypnotherapists? I know a lot of people mistake it for erotic hypnosis, don't they? You know, just as in... Yes.
And I break it down to erotic hypnosis and erotic hypnotherapy. Erotic hypnosis is giving someone suggestions to enhance their feelings. Erotic hypnotherapy is helping people fix, transforming their beliefs about things that they feel guilty or aren't 100% comfortable with, but they want to feel comfortable with.
Absolutely.
So a lot more, you know, I say fix. In the US, we're not, or at least in Florida, I'm not allowed to say heal, but it's helping them transform their beliefs about what they want versus where they're at right now. So I guess just to tell other hypnotists and hypnotherapists is to educate themselves and learn the differences. And more importantly, if it's outside your comfort zone, don't take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fine if it is outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
As well. You know, there are people like you and people like me that are more than happy to work within those areas. It's interesting though, because I do get this as well. Do you get the, oh, I couldn't work with people like that? And I mean, I get that even just working with sexual issues, you know, outside of the, you know, and I'm like, well, people like what? Because everybody on the planet is a sexual being. Everybody, you know, there's not a person on the planet that can be here without two people having had sex.
Right.
So, you know, I think if we can start to demystify, you know, just in the same way performance anxiety about sex is no different than performance anxiety about giving a best man speech or singing a song or a job interview, but people see the sex, don't they, rather than the performance anxiety.
Exactly. And they realize it makes them uncomfortable, so they don't want to talk about that. And if it makes you uncomfortable, that's going to come across to your client, who's not going to be as in touch with their feelings because now they're worried about what you think about them.
How many clients do you get that have been to other therapists and have felt really kind of discriminated against, or, do you get many of those, or
I've had maybe
keep you out straight away now?
two. Yeah, it's hard to say. I know I get in the BDSM world, a lot of times they're seeing therapists for other issues, and they don't feel comfortable going to that therapist for an erotic issue.
Okay.
So they find me that way. They have other issues and that they're seeing that therapist for, and they don't dare bring up the kink or the fetish or any part of that into their therapy. And I'm like, well, that's kind of their job. But on the other hand, if you don't feel comfortable telling someone that, you're not going to share that with them.
Absolutely. It's interesting. What I've found more and more is I get, I think once your name is within the community, people will start, they come to you because certainly within the kink community, once you're known as somebody that's sympathetic, understanding, non-judgmental, that your name gets passed around very quickly and your appointment book is full. And it's not even erotic issues often, is it? It's just that I can just be me and you're not going to judge me.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of the times it's not a kink issue.
No,
but
not at all.
There's a kinky expression of their issue that they're not comfortable with.
Quite often. No, absolutely. So, where can people find you? So if people are looking for a kink-friendly hypnotherapist, do you do online sessions as well as in-person ones?
I do. Most of my work, I'm in Florida, which, my golly, within an hour of here, I'm within 2 hours of several swing clubs and 2 nudist resorts and at least 5 kink.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have to go far.
Okay.
I do travel to national events, and I pick up a lot of national and sometimes international clients that way. But a lot of my work is done right here. And then being Florida, it's a vacation destination. St. Petersburg, Tampa is huge. So I actually have people fly in and take maybe add an extra day to their visit to come visit me to work on something that they want to work on.
Cool. And that's, I think that really speaks volumes about how good you are and your reputation as a kink-friendly hypnotherapist, and actually hypnotherapist as well. And also just the need, isn't there? That, there's many people out there that kind of indulge in a lifestyle that they often believe to be in the minority, and I'm not so sure that it is anymore. So let me just get this right. So it's www.wingshypnosis.com.
Correct. Wingshypnosis.com. You can send me an email at wingshypnosis@gmail.com. I'm trying to think how else to, or you.
Do you have a Facebook page or anything like that people can find you on?
We do. I think it's facebook.com/wingshypnosis. And then if you're on fetlife.com, my profile in there, I hesitate to say this, but it is what it is Miss Hypnotits. So that's MISSHYPNOTITS. You can find me there on FetLife as well.
So cool. Well, what I can tell you is that Traci has very kindly agreed to come back and talk to us about several things, because there's many projects that she's working on. She does all the comedy as well. She's won lots and lots of awards. So this won't be the last of you see of Traci. I'm very happy to tell you. And we'll be back soon with another episode. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you for coming, Traci. It's
thank you.
Having fun. Always the way with our work, isn't it? Full of innuendo. But so
I will say my comedy website is Dominatrix of Ditties, DITTIES.com. Dominatrix of Ditties.com.
Fantastic. So Thank you for watching this show, this episode of Trancing in the Sheets, which, as ever, is brought to you from the Hypnosis 247 Live Network. And we'll be back with you very soon with the next episode. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Get ready.